Hey everyone, John from Vegas Dream Homes here, and today I'm here to talk to you about what happens when an appraisal comes in low. And there's actually 4 things that can happen when this situation comes up in a real estate transaction. The first situation is that the seller will lower the sales price because the home has not necessarily come up at the value that was agreed upon from a selling perspective. So the seller will ultimately lower the sales price. The second thing that can happen is the buyer can contribute additional money to close that gap between what the house appraised for and what the house is selling for. The third thing that can happen is the buyer and seller can come up with a mutually agreed upon financial decision to close that gap as well. It could be 50-50, maybe the seller lowers the price by 50% and the buyer contributes an additional 50% to close that gap. Could be 60-40, could be 75-25. It's just going to be handled through negotiations between the buyer's agent and the seller's agent. And the last thing that can happen, which is a protection for the buyer in this particular part of the transaction, is so long as they are within their appraisal contingency period, if they can't negotiate the price, the seller won't lower, and the buyer doesn't want to contribute, the buyer can ultimately cancel the transaction if the parties don't come to an agreement. But what I can promise you is that as a real estate professional, I will work super hard for you to try and come to an agreeable situation between the parties if this situation does come up in the transaction. So if you have any more questions about what happens in appraisals and how all this stuff works, hit me up on the socials, comment, and just let me know, and I'll let you know whatever I can.